Cool. So let's talk a little bit about events in the DOM here. Let me move the chat over here for you. Great. So I think let's just build off the thing that we were working on yesterday here. First, let me talk a little bit about DOM events, what we're going to do with them, and why even DOM events. Um, Cool. So yesterday we looked at manipulating the DOM, working with it, selecting parts off of it, doing things with those, adding things to them, appending new elements to the DOM, and all that stuff, which is cool. Now we're going to add a little bit of interactivity to it. So what is an event in the DOM? An event in the DOM or not is basically it's just a message that we're going to send from something in a as a response to something that happened, and we can respond to that in kind. So if we have a button and we click that button is going to broadcast an event that says, "Hey, I got clicked." And we can so it's going to do that no matter what we do. If we just put a button on a page and click it, it's going to shoot off a "Hey, I got clicked" event. um, where we come in is we can listen to events from specific elements, and there's events being fired off all the time. uh, there's click events, there's sense events when windows move, when you focus on different things, when your mouse moves, when you type stuff. It'll do on the new frames. It's They're firing off all the time. So we just want to go ahead and listen to the ones that are useful to us so we can do things in response to them. So practically, an event, like a lot of things in JavaScript, is just an object. Yeah, there we go. It's just an object in JavaScript. So there's a capital E event class, and when something throws an event or broadcasts an event, we're going to see an instance of that object that we can assign to a variable, we can pass it to a function, uh, throw it around, do whatever we'd like with it. And yeah, so this is going to, why do we use events? Because we want to be able to interact with it. If we were just looking at a static web page, that's fine. There's plenty of great static web pages that you can't do anything with out there. But we want to be able to do something with it. And in combination with the DOM manipulation stuff we learned, we can use it to affect and change the page according to something that the user does or something that happens otherwise, which is real handy. Um, cool. So I think I'm just gonna jump in to some code, and we'll talk about stuff as we go along. And as usual, if you have any questions at all as we go, shoot up a hand or speak up, and we will talk about it. And we'll be using lots of functions as we go along. So if you have questions about any of the fundamental stuff as we go along, also great time to do it. That's why we are here. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Meeting controls. Get faces over here. Great. Cool. So I'm just gonna, since we already have a file here, I'm gonna use that. Yeah, let's go ahead and see what that looks like here. I'm gonna fire up the go live. Bring that back over here for us so we can actually see what's going on. Great. And it should bring up our page. In theory. Thinking about it. Come on, bud. Can't be reached. Yeah, let me see light server is it. Sometimes live server. Picky. Supposing go live. Let's go. Nope. All right, cool. I'm just gonna use lightsaber then. I'll just do server, and that should bring us up. Yeah, there we go. Cool. So there's our yeah, right, there's our fancy header. Great. I'm gonna just pull that styling off because we don't need it. Cool. So let's look at so we've got uh some basic content there. We had our not that one. We had our sandwich list populating things. So let's take a look at what we might want to do. Let's close that up. Some extra logs, get rid of that. Great. Um, cool. Let's work down here. Um, so the first most basic event we're going to look at is a button click, I guess. Let's go ahead and add a button down here. Here's a button, and we'll just say click me. Meatball, click meatball. And there's our button down. Where is it? Nope. Because that's in JavaScript. We don't want it there. We want it in here. Great. Format. Fantastic. There's a button. It says click me. If we click, let me open the console. If we click, nothing happens right now because we haven't done anything to it. So we're going to need to do a few things to make this work. So we know that when we click on a button, it's going to throw out a click event, on click event. So we need to subscribe to that event, basically, listen for it. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to add an event listener on that element. So how do we get a hold of that element? Ideas? Yeah, Zani.
Yeah, so then you'd have to start with adding either an ID or a class into the tag there.
Yeah, let's go ahead and add an ID. Cool. So once we've added an ID, then we can do what with it? Yeah, Hyro.
You can assign it to a variable by doing my query selector,
Yeah.
like selecting it.
Space up here. So let's assign it to a variable. We'll call it button generic. And let's do our selector here. So we're gonna do a document. We're gonna get it by ID and our clicky, I think. And let's just console log that out. Just make sure we got it. So over here, hey, look at that. We got our button. There's the clicky button. So we know we've selected the right thing. It's highlighting it over there. Awesome. So next step is to add an event listener to our to the element that we've grabbed. We will often be adding them to buttons because that's the interface that people expect. Pretty much anything lets you click on it. So if we wanted to, you know, click on the header, we could also get the header there. Did I the header? Yeah, header there. For now, we're just going to get the button. So I can say button because that's a button that we have. I need to add an event listener on there. Hey, look at that. Add event listener. That is the thing we use to it. So add event listener is a method on pretty much every HTML element. And it takes a couple things as a method here. The first thing it's going to do is take the kind of event that it is. Each event has a type. There are a bunch of built-in types available to JavaScript. When we get further down the line, you can actually create your own custom events and call them whatever you want. But for now, we're just going to be using the built-in ones. So the thing that gets thrown when we click on a button, yeah, oh, console log the bucket button. I just console log button. And then that will give us that there. I haven't made that go. Is that go which one?
Yeah, I'm getting an undefined error, but maybe I'm trying to follow along and
Do you have the defer in your script tag?
probably not.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll check. I'll just go through it. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and just make sure that everything's named the right thing. Yeah, check for quotes.
Hey, one quick thing.
Go for it.
Sorry if I could jump in real quick. When you put clicky here without a hashtag, I thought like, oh, don't like IDs always have to have the hashtag? And then kind of went back to my notes, and I just wanted to call out how it's like when you do query selector, you
Yeah,
have to put the hashtag, but when you do get element by ID, you don't. I
exactly.
was like, that's a really small thing, but just caught that.
Yeah. So when you get element by ID, it knows it's going to be an ID. You can't get anything else with that function. Query selector is a lot more flexible, so you have to be more precise in what you're telling it. And the convention is that a pound sign hashtag is for IDs. Yeah, good catch. Cool. So we've got our button. We're going to add an event listener. So the first thing we need is a click. Boom. So it is the first thing you pass into add event listener is the type of event you're listening for. So we're listening for a click event. So we will listen for type click. And so what this says is it adds this listener to it. It says when this thing that I'm listening to, when this button or whatever it happens to be, sends an event, check what kind of thing it is. If it matches what we look, fire off this function and pass the event as an argument to it. So I'm just going to call it handle click. So that's the function we're going to use, which means we need to write that function. We can also do it in line. I can demonstrate that in a little bit. I just want to get the kind of basics down before we put that in there. I think it's actually taught the other way around, like inline first, but this feels more clear to me. So event listener is listening for a click, and it's going to call this function a handle click when the button is clicked. So let's write that function. Cool. So we've got a function. It does a thing. So we just said that when we add the event listener, it's going to listen for that click, and it's going to call this function, and it's going to pass the event that triggered the function to that, or sorry, it's going to pass the event itself, the event object that triggered the listener to that click handler function. And so that means we need to catch it here. And in fact, let's say clicked. So just to check that this is actually working at all. So we've gotten our button, we've added an event listener, we're listening for a click, and it's going to call this function here. And all this function right now is doing is saying we click something. So let's click it, test it out. Hey, it works. Cool. And in fact, I can just log out the event here to show what kind of thing we got when we clicked. And that's our event here. There's, again, a lot of stuff to it. It'll tell us like exactly where on the button we clicked, all sorts of good stuff. But for a click event, the important thing is that it triggered it. The other thing that we might want to look at is the target here, and we'll talk about that in a minute. In any event, the target is the object that broadcasted the event. Yeah, Azani, what question do you have?
Yeah, could you scroll back over to, yep. So my question is the argument for the handle click function,
Mhm.
why doesn't that say click instead of like event in general? I'm kind of yeah, that's my general question. Like how could that, yeah, it's like saying, oh, that could be like any event, but isn't it specifically a click? That's, I was curious about that.
Yeah, so it is just the event that is passed to it. We could, again, this is the parameter that we're passing into the function, so we can call it sandwich, and
Uh
as long as we're using it there, what we call it here doesn't really matter. So I'm just calling it event because that's what it is. Often I'll just put an E there.
so sorry, follow up to that. So I don't know what I'm like missing here. So like what's the like why wouldn't it have no argument, I guess?
Because it is so add event listener basically is attaching this function to the button, and
Mhm.
when it gets that handler, it's going to
Oh,
call that function, and it's going to say
got it.
that this is it's going to pass that event saying this is the event that caused you to be called.
Okay, yes, it's already connected to the button.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, and then like JavaScript takes care of the calling it and passing the events for you.
Got it. All right, thank you.
Yeah. And for this button, like it's not going to be we don't have any real need to know anything about the event. So if we're not doing anything about it, we can just say clicked. And we don't need to do anything with the event because we're not using the event for anything, but we'll definitely be using the event in most other ones. So it's just a good habit to get into. And if you're not using it, you can not catch it. Cool. So this is the like basic fundamental. This is the structure that we're going to be using for all of the events. So before we move any further, take some questions. Anything that's anything is not clicking here, or that you'd like to hear more about. Hannah, yeah.
Okay. From what I understand, we don't want to add the like parentage to like handle click for the line 5.
Mhm.
Like we don't want to add the parentage because I mean like when the function you add the parentage.
Can you
Like,
say anything? I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
okay, okay. You know how when there's like a function,
Mhm.
you already add the parentage at the end of the function, right? But you don't want to add that when you add event listener, right?
So are you asking if the add event listener is the method that's on the button there or on any element, and that's basically this is a function that we're calling that says that's the one that's actually doing the attaching the click handler to that button, and then this is the function that's actually being called. Is that what you're asking? Oh, asking about parentheses. Got it. Yeah. So this is again, the functions are also objects. So this is we're just telling it which one to call. We're not calling it here because that would say whatever this function is returning, that's going to be your event listener. And if you have a wild situation where you're returning a function here, whatever, that might be it, but that's not usually what we're going to be doing. So yeah, so generally we just want to say use this function, don't call this function when we're creating the event listener. You're going to be calling that function when the listener kicks off. Does that make more sense? Awesome. Yeah, it's on.
Yeah, a quick follow-up to that. So like so that basically says that in the case of the handle click, that is basically just the name of the function / like of the object. But
Mhm.
once you put that smaller parentheses there, then it basically represents like the outcome of that.
Yeah. So when you put the parentheses, that's telling JavaScript call this function, and whatever that function returns, that's going to be the value here.
Got it.
And right here, the value that we want is the function itself.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So yeah, so let's actually have it do something. Isaiah, first go for it.
To
Still on mute.
piggyback off of what Azani said, if you put the parenthesis again at the end of handle click,
Mhm.
are you calling handle click twice?
So when you do that here, you're calling handle click. So
Okay.
handle click is returning. So we're going to return 23, right? So
Okay.
this is equivalent to saying that,
Okay.
because we're calling that function when we're assigning this. So
Okay.
it's a cool. If you want to run that function, go ahead and do that. I'm going to take whatever this is returning and put it here.
Oh, okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's more like it's like F versus F of X in algebra. Yeah. Cool. Any other questions about this? This is again a pattern you're gonna see a lot, passing functions to things. So if you have more questions about it, I'd love to hear. Feeling all right for now? All right. So, there we go, Kimberly.
Because I've kind of been through this before, can we demonstrate not just click, but rendering an image to the page?
Yeah,
Or is that later on in the lecture?
Nope, that's exactly what we're doing next.
Sweet.
Great segue. So cool. Instead of just clicking it for the click of it, we're actually going to have it do something. So right now, let's have it. Let's have it add something to the list. Right now, let's just change the header. How about that? So in our handle click, we want to say this is a header. This is a click, whatever. So we need to do a few things. We need to grab that header element. So let's do that. And just to make sure that we got it, I'm going to console log it out. And so I'm just going to test here that when I click the button, it's going to grab that header. And there it is. Cool. So I've clicked the button through an event handler, called the function we attached to it, and it's saying grab that header. We grab the header. Now we can do stuff to the header. So right now, let's just change the change the text of the header. Yeah, so we'll say header text content equals you clicked me. Great. Here. There we go. Exactly the same. Just want to make it consistent. Cool. So right now we are grabbing our button by selecting it by the ID. We are saying, hey, button, add an event listener, listen for a click, and when you get clicked, run this function called handle click. We're going to define this function, handle click, and in that function, it's going to grab the header by ID, and we're going to say, change the content of that header to something else when we click it. So let's see what happens when we click it. Hey, we did it. We interacted with the page. We clicked the button and made something happen. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. And we can do all sorts of stuff with that. If we want to, we can, we can add we can use the stuff that we did last time. Look at that. I'm going to move gonna move our render sandwiches and everything up top here. So at the beginning of the page, when it loads up, it's got a list of sandwiches. It's going to render those sandwiches out. For some reason, I'm not getting how event on line 6 could be anything as opposed to why we wouldn't keep it empty. On the line 6 changed.
Oh, yeah, yeah, you just changed it, but
line
yeah,
now. So
Yes.
I think why it's like that instead of that.
yeah.
Yeah, right now we don't need to catch the event, so it's totally fine this way. But it's always going to send the event whether we use it or not. So just by kind of default, I catch it just in case we need it. But for clicks, we're not going to need it. Cannot access header before initialization. Do you have defer on your script tag here? Yes. Okay, cool. Cannot access header before initialization. Can you paste the code that is on line 3 there just to see? Cool. Button clicky console log header. Great. Where are you getting header from there?
I got it.
Yep.
It was the console log that was tripping me up. Sorry.
Cool. Yeah, you got button instead of header. Awesome. Cool. So we set up some stuff down here last time. Take a look at it real quick. So we have our list of sandwiches up here, and we're calling render sandwiches. And all that's doing is saying, hey, grab the sandwiches UL and clear it out. And then for each sandwich in that list, we're going to add that string. We're going to add sandwich. What does that do? Add sandwich creates an empty list item here. It adds the text content to that list item and then appends that list item to the list. So it's going to create this list that we're seeing over here. Let's use that stuff that we made last time and add a random sandwich. Or I got right now, let's just add a sandwich to it. So I'm going to say sandwiches. Let's push a sandwich. And it's a chicken salad sandwich. Gross. And so we're going to add a new sandwich to that list, and we're just going to call render sandwiches again. So when we click the button, it's going to add some stuff to our list of sandwiches, and it's going to clear out that list and re-render it for us. So in theory, since we wrote all that stuff last time and we're pretty sure it works, we tested it by adding a fluffer noder before. I'm expecting when I click this button that it will, since we've already attached the listener, it's going to throw an event. It's going to call that function. That function is going to add data to our list here, and that's going to render out the list again. Let's see if any of that is true. Hey, look at that. And we can add as many chicken salads as we want. Great. So this is a nice way not only to interact with the page itself, but to change the data and then use the page to reflect that data. If we wanted to, we could do this. We could just say, oh, I'm gonna add sandwich chicken salad. That will visually do the same thing, add a chicken salad. But if we look at our sandwiches, the sandwich array has not changed. So if we want to do something else with that data, these don't match up. So best practice is generally to change your data. And then after your data looks the way you want, update your view, your page to reflect what that data looks like. You can absolutely manipulate the DOM and throw data on there yourself if you want to. It makes it more difficult to get it back out. Yeah, and we'll definitely see more concrete examples of that. This is a little bit more ahead, but just something to keep in mind as we're going ahead. Isaiah, yeah, what do you got?
Say you wanted to push more sandwiches on your click. How could you do an example of that? Would you just continue to do sandwich push and then say we're doing sandwiches, or
Can you give me an example of what that would look like?
okay, so like we have our list right here, click me chicken salad, but say every time you click me, it's a different sandwich or something rather.
Yeah, so we could throw random sandwiches here. We could put, random numbers on the list, whatever we want. Let's take a look at letting the user input a sandwich. What does the sandwiches info look like in HTML? I have it in an array, but it's not appearing in the browser. Can you ask that question again? I think I understand what you're asking. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, sorry. I'm trying to get caught up on what you did yesterday too. And I have it as an array in that index.js
Mhm.
document, but the index HTML, I'm just wondering if you have it as like a list or you like how you're getting it to appear in the browser.
Yeah. So let's walk through it again.
Okay.
So I've got my array of sandwiches. I'm just setting statically up here as part of the program.
Mhm.
And then I'm saying render the sandwiches. So we're going to put those sandwiches on there. So what does render sandwiches do? Render sandwiches gets that sandwiches element, which is our UL. And we're going to go through our list and oh, sorry. First off, we're going to get that UL and we're going to clear it out. We're going to set it to nothing. So there's no sandwiches in there. There's no list items in there. Then we're going to go through our array and say for each one of those strings in that array, add a sandwich. And for each automatically passes each one of these to that function. So the first time this runs, it's going to say add sandwich pastrami. That's going to say add sandwich meatball, and so on. And so the add sandwich function that we did yesterday is going to take that string. We're going to create a new list item. We're going to set the text of that list item to whatever got passed in. So the first time it'll be pastrami. Then we're going to grab the UL, the list of sandwiches there, the unordered list in HTML, and then we're going to append the list item that we created to that. And so it's going to do that for each one of those, and that's what's going to make that list show up. That was a whirlwind tour of what we did yesterday. Do you want to dive a little bit deeper into that?
Yeah, maybe if you could just paste it like into our chat or something, I can then look it over
Yeah,
later. Thank you.
let's paste those functions. There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool. Azani, yeah, you have a question?
Yeah, what you just went through now just made me think about like, even though it's sort of like, hoisting is obviously possible, would you say that there is sort of value to kind of like placing things in the logical order that they appear? I mean, yeah, I guess like, does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a matter of preference. I tend to do it like this. So like as we write functions, they just kind of stack up. And because once we write it, we just need to know that it's there. And then we can kind of like keep track of all that here. But if we put all this in front, it works exactly the same.
Yeah,
We're just coding down here instead of up there. Yeah, it's a matter of preference, really.
understood.
Yeah. I just like it here because like when I scroll up, then I'm at the top of the code. And when I want to look at the functions that's in y'all, I can just go down here to look at them. But yeah, definitely 100% matter of taste. In fact, some people will be like, oh, like I've got my functions down here, helper functions.
Oh yeah, that does help.
And so now like we've got our main program up here and then the library of functions down here. And in fact, sometimes you want to get fancy, you'll like put these in another file and bring them in. There's a bunch of different things to do. Kimberly, you're getting undefined. When are you getting undefined from?
when I'm trying to add the sandwich to the list,
Mhm.
oh, now it all went away. Oh, that's not good. Let me come back to this.
Alrighty. Alrighty. Cool. While you're working on that, I'm going to go ahead and we will take a look at what a form looks like. I think we'll let a user specify, because I think we had a user request for that. So instead of just pushing chicken salad, let's throw a form in our page here. So content, let's call it what it is. This is hey, these are my sandwiches. Great. So I'm going to throw a little form in here. I don't know if we've looked at forms in HTML at all in the pre-work or anything, but this is pretty much what they look like. They are tags, form tag. Form tags are going to have form elements in them. There's a whole bunch of different ones. There's text fields, there's text boxes, there's radio buttons, there's check boxes, there's submit buttons, there's you can make color pickers and sliders and all sorts of stuff. We're just going to look at two simple ones right now. We'll look at an input field, a text box, and the submit button. Cool. So I'm actually going to get rid of this button down here for now. And we'll talk about more detail about submit versus button soon. Cool. So we've got a form. Forms don't show up on the page until you put something in them. And since I took that out, that is not going to work anymore. Let's comment that out. Great. Cool. So I'm going to add two things to the form. I'm going to add a new sandwich input field. So I'm going to add a label. New sandwich. And we're going to add an input field for that. Input. We're going to give it a type of text. Text. You can give it a type tel, which is a telephone number. And most of the time, you're going to be giving inputs a name. So I'm just going to call this new sandwich. Sandwich name. Great. And I'm just going to close it off in here. So this is a self-closing tag. And when we look at it over here, there's our new sandwich. So we can type in here. There we go. You type stuff in there. And in fact, we're not going to do it right now, but when you type in a field, it throws an event. It'll throw a change event saying that the value of this is changed. And when you click into it, it's going to throw a focus event. And when you click out of it, it's going to do a blur event. So to make this form do something, we need to be able to submit the form. So let's add a submit there. This is another input type. And it'll look like this. It'll just show up as submit. I'm gonna put this in. Oh my god, I'm gonna put this in a div. Give it a value that's going to show up here. Add sandwich. Kind of like at the end, but that's fine. So new sandwich, add sandwich. So now we need to. So this doesn't do anything yet. And in fact, if we hit this button, it's not going to do anything. So we need to hook up a event listener to listen for another kind of event on the form. a submit event. Basically, when you submit a form, the form submits that event, which means we need to grab the form. So I'm going to add an ID here. New sandwich form. And now I'm going to add an event listener to that form. Oops. And just for kicks, gonna look at it. And in theory, we should get our form here. Great. And we can click into that form and see what's in it. Great. So form objects. Well, before we talk about it, let's add the event listener. So I'm going to say new sandwich form, add event listener. And this time I'm going to listen to a submit event. So when a form gets submitted, it tosses a submit event. And let's add a new sandwich. We'll call it the handle new sandwich. Cool. So let's make that function. It's all up. Handle new sandwich. And so this time we are going to need to take the event. I'll show you why in just a second. Cool. And so let's console log and make sure that this is working. Submitted. So type something in the form, add sandwich, and watch the console closely. Click add sandwich. Yep, something happened, but it's not doing anything. What's going on there? Yeah, Eileen.
You didn't prevent default?
Yeah, exactly. So by default, a form is going to submit what's called a post request, and that usually entails reloading the page by default. In these modern times, we rarely ever actually want that to happen. So we are going to prevent that default. And to do that, we need to use the event. Oops, let's do it lowercase. Cool, so when we listen to the event submit, it's going to call handle new sandwich. It's going to pass the event that triggered it. So this is the one, this is where we can say, hey, event, instead of reloading the page, posting that event, don't do that. So we're going to say, just say prevent default. And for some reason, that's one that's never auto-populated. So now that we do that, cool. So now we can actually do stuff without the page reloading. So whenever you're doing a form, almost every single time, you're going to want to put this there, just by default there. So we know it's submitting the form. Let's do something with it. So forms or submit events are a little bit special because they're submitted from a form, and forms have things in them. One of the things that's special about it is when you give an input field a name, you can just refer to that with a dot format, syntax in the event. So on the event, you can say event, what do we call it here? New sandwich name. That will give us that input element. So let's console log that out. So when we click this, this should give us the element. Undefined. Oh, great. What did I do wrong? I know I did wrong. The event, we need to get it off of the target of the event. And remember, so the target is the HTML element that broadcast the event. So in our case, it's going to be the form. So we want to get event target. And then from that form, then we can get the sandwich name element. There we go. So cool. It's got our thing here. We can click it again, give that again. Just the event alone is not a lot of use to us, however, or just the element alone. What we want to do is get the value that is in that event, in that element. And so that's a mouthful. Event target sandwich name, which is the name of the element that we gave here. And name is just a HTML attribute. But now we're going to console log the value of the sandwich name element in the target, which is the form that was sent by that event. Put some stuff in there. Hey, look at that. So now we got a string to work with. So how do we get what is in that form to show up on our list? Thoughts? Yeah, Kimberly.
Use the function that we previously defined to push the entry into the list.
Yep, exactly. So let's go ahead and push that into the list. So we're going to push that there, and it's not going to do anything yet because we haven't called that function, but we can look at sandwiches and see, in fact, that it has showed up. So now we're just going to render out our sandwiches. And if everything is working great, we can go back to our chicken salad. And when we hit the button, hey, that is there. And the one little thing I want to do, so if I want to add a second one, I would have to delete that manually. I'm just going to say event target clear. Reset, is it clear or reset? I think it's reset. I think it's reset. So that should, in theory, add it and then clear out this form field for us. Hey, and now we can just type whatever we want. And the cool thing about forms is that you can hit the button or you can just hit return and it'll also submit for us. And so now we can see that we've got our list here. If you look at sandwiches again, it's going to give us the correct list. These are in sync. Everything's right with the world. We did a good codes. Cool. That was a lot of stuff all at once. Let's ask some questions. See, new sandwich form, add event listener is not a function. What happens if you console log out the new sandwich form? Is it giving you the form or is it giving you undefined?
Console log out the new sandwich form. Let me try.
Yeah. Or if you'd like to share your screen, we can make that happen.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, looks like I can't share while you're sharing.
Oh, yeah, maybe I should. Hey, everybody. Okay, go for it.
Okay, cool. Can you see that?
Yep.
Sweet. This was me very quickly following along, so I hope something may be wrong, obviously, but this is the error I'm getting.
Mhm.
And then I console logged it here.
Uh-huh.
And this thing is popping up.
Cool. So we've got the right form.
Okay.
So it's saying add event listener is not a function, which is true. Why is that true?
Because it's not a function. I actually don't.
It is not a function. You're correct. Computers are very picky about what they are looking for. So it's looking for add event listener, and we got add event listener.
Mm-hmm.
Can anyone say what's wrong?
It's a lowercase L.
It's a lowercase L.
Oh my goodness. This was me very quickly.
Boom.
Yay.
Yeah. Um,
Okay.
again, I've been doing this for decades, and I am not immune to that happening all the time. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
You'll see me doing the autocomplete a lot, like just to make sure I'm not making a typo. I'm going to rely on the IDE to put the right thing in there for me.
Okay. Cool.
Mark,
Thank
can
you.
you put your code back up? Because I'm getting too many errors. I know I was trying to follow along too fast.
Let's go ahead and share your screen. You can do a little bit of debug.
Okay. That's gonna be fun. Hang on just a second.
And we'll get to Holly and Ryland in just a second.
Okay, you see the code?
Yep.
It's, I mean, at this point, it's not giving me, it's giving me undefined when it won't even populate the list,
Okay.
the sandwich list.
Let's take a look at what
So,
your error says.
so I've got the sandwich list here at the top. Do you see that?
Yep.
Okay. And then I've got the function add sandwich. And then I tried to do the new sandwich form, but I have somehow lost all of my sandwiches.
Now let's take a look at
I'm
the
very hungry.
error that it's giving you.
It's not giving me any errors right now. It's just blank.
Okay, it's just blank.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's do some detective work on this.
Okay.
So add sandwich. Add sandwich is being called with what as an argument there?
Nothing.
Oh, interesting.
Sandwiches. There we go. That's why. Okay. Let me get back to my page, which I need to move that.
So
Hang on just a second.
before you look at that, what
Uh-huh.
kind of thing is add sandwich looking for as a function? Not on line line 36.
On line 36. Oh, sandwich, not sandwiches.
So that's
Is that
gonna be
right?
for a string, probably, right?
Yeah.
So how do we do something for each one of those strings in that list there? If we want to go through that sandwiches list and do something to each one of those items.
Well, I got one back.
You got your sandwich there?
And I got a PB&J, which is down here.
Okay.
Okay, I'm doing something wrong, and this is where I'm like lost throughout my code, and it's very disorganized.
Yeah.
So
You probably want to Megan's in chat there. You probably want to do a for each on sandwiches. And
for
then
each, I had that somewhere, and oh, there it is.
oh yeah, there it is. Sandwiches for each, add sandwich. Great. So yeah, so you can get rid of that line 3 there because that's just going to add the word sandwich.
Okay. That's not what I want to do. Okay.
What does that look like there? Does that give you a list of sandwiches?
No, it did not.
Cool. If you console log on line, if you add one after line 36 and console log out sandwich, what does it tell you you're getting there?
Just the PB&J.
Okay.
Oh no, there they are. I see them. Okay, so the sandwiches are there
Cool. So you know they're getting the sandwiches. It's just a matter of getting them on the page.
on the list. So I need to
So that's going to be debugging that function there.
right. Okay, so document sandwiches dot inner HTML is making it blank, and then creating the list, and then list item dot inner HTML. That should be text content, shouldn't it?
Yeah, text content is what I usually do there, but that should
Okay. Okay. And then I can get rid of the uh, interpolation. Okay.
And then you're grabbing the sandwiches list and then appending it. That looks right to me. Is it doing what we think it's supposed to do?
No, it's not. It's still coming up blank. It's just pulling the PB and J.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah,
Cool, but it is console logging those sandwiches, right?
right.
So we know that part's working.
Yeah.
Let's throw some more console logs in there.
Okay.
Are the semicolons important? She's missing two.
Semicolons are not important for functionality. They're important for readability. Opinions differ on that. For me, I like punctuation. So yeah, so you got
Yeah.
and interesting
So
that it is doing. Oh, I know
what
what's
line?
does anyone else see what's happening? There's a helper function in the middle that you're not doing that we were doing before. So let's walk through what's happening.
Okay.
Up here on line 3 or whatever up there, we are doing a for each. We're putting all those. Go ahead and so that is clearing out the list, putting everything on there. When you add, so it's clearing out the list each time you add a sandwich.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's an append. No.
Yeah. So what we have in the middle in mine is a helper function called render sandwiches, I think, and that is saying clear out the list and then do your for each in there. So it's going to look at the list and render the entire list out. Right now, every time you add a sandwich, it's clearing out. So I bet if you console log out, add sandwich, or if you comment out, add sandwich down there, it should have just roast beef on there, I bet. So if you comment
You
out,
mean
48.
comment out line 38?
48. Yeah, I bet that will give you just roast beef.
Okay.
Is that true?
It did.
All
You
right.
are right. Okay.
So for now, if you want to, you can just comment out line 38 to not clear out the list every time you add something.
And I've got my 4 sandwiches back. Okay.
And so the reason we did it in mine is because we're rendering out the entire list in that render sandwich. And so when we push something to the list first, then we render out the list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now let's see if I can add a sandwich, which I'm guessing I can't because there's something incomplete here. So I've got new sandwich form.
Line 48, you should be able to get that in there. So you should have PB&J on there.
Okay. Okay.
So
Yep, it's there.
yeah. So what you're doing right now is you are directly adding stuff to the page instead of adding things to the list and then rendering out the list, which is fine. If all you care about is getting stuff on the page, that's totally fine. Adding it to the list and then rendering out the list is a nice extra step to keep your data and your page in sync.
Okay.
But cool. It looks like you've got the right idea now.
I think so. The button was giving me problems as well, but I think I need to just go through your code and look at what happened because I got lost in there. So I'm going to stop sharing now.
Yeah, and this is the like what we're just doing is what you're going to be doing most of the time is like I'm trying to do a thing. It's not doing the thing, it's doing this instead. So let's check our assumptions at every step of the way. Let's console log everything because we saw that the sandwiches were getting passed into the function and the function was getting called. So that meant that something else was going wrong. And so it's just a matter of like making sure what we think is in places is what we think it is. And then, when we find something when we find that disconnect between like, okay, everything is what I expect up to here and now it's not, that's when we start digging in there. So yeah, it's a skill. It's definitely a learned skill that takes practice. I don't expect anyone to have it perfected in 2.5 days. Cool. Holly, what do you got?
Hey, let me know if this is something that you like don't want to get to right now, but is there a way to keep it so that every sandwich that you add stays there even on page refresh until you like manually try to clear it with like another button?
Yeah, and we will actually get to that tomorrow. Yeah,
Sick. Okay, cool. Thank you.
yeah. Cool, Ryland.
If you wouldn't mind pulling your code back up for me, I just wanted you to run through one of the lines specifically. I was a little bit confused again.
Yeah, what are you looking for?
Line 15. I was just hoping to get a little more explanation on what exactly is happening there once again.
So let's go back to back up here. So we're adding our event listener to handle new sandwich. So when we submit this form is sending the event, and we are calling handle new sandwich event. So the event is the submit event that got sent. We want to get the value of the thing in that form field. So first we need to get the form itself. So since the form is the thing that sent the submit event, the event's target is going to be that form itself. And so on a form, when we have a field with a name attribute, we can call that name with dot notation on the form itself, which is the target. So let me break this down a little bit. So we have our event. I'm going to say our form is event target. And so this is saying the thing that sent the event, that's the form. And so I'm going to say the sandwich input, that is our form sandwich name. And so on line 17 here, this is getting the HTML element. It's getting this HTML element by name from that form. And so now we just want to get the value of that. And that's going to be whatever was typed into the form. And so we're pushing that onto our sandwiches list here. And this is kind of our master list that's always going to have the most up-to-date version of the list of sandwiches. And then we're just rendering out the sandwich list. So that's when it's going down and clearing it out and putting everything on the list for us. Any parts of that you want to dive into more?
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Cool. Eileen, what do you got?
Yeah, if this is something that you're going to go over tomorrow as well, no worries. But just like being unable to submit a blank input, if you could show us how to have it like reject that.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so we can right now we can add blank ones. Fantastic. That's a great question. Let's talk through how to do that, or how we would think one way to do that. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and say, here's our new sandwich, and it's going to be our event target sandwich name value. Sandwich name value. Cool. So here, if we console log it out, just to make sure we're getting the right thing. Put some stuff in there, and it's logging it out. Great. And if we do it with nothing in there, we're getting a bunch of blanks over here. So we know that the sandwich name is an empty string when we get it here, if there's nothing in there. So we can, well, actually, what are your ideas? Yeah, Kimberly.
Create an if statement that if there is an empty string,
Mhm.
You're gonna return an error message or an alert or something that says that it's an empty string, please try again.
Yeah.
Or you can enter the sandwich name. So it's a ternary.
Mm.
So if sandwich name equals empty string, return the error message.
Let me do it now. It's down here.
Yeah. Else return sandwich name.
Cool. And instead of returning it, we're just gonna do our putting it on there. And here
Right.
we can just do, is it window alert?
I thought it was just alert.
Yeah, you can do either one. Window is kind of the
Okay.
namespace.
Gotcha.
Please input a sandwich. Cool. Let's see if that does it. So new sandwich. Hey, please input a sandwich. Great. Does it work if we put something in? It sure does. Cool. So that is a way to do it. You can also check for like sandwich.length if that's 0. Those are 2 main ways I would think. Does that answer your question? Oh yeah, return is never required. Return is only if you're looking for it to return something. Right now, there is a return value. The return value is undefined because nothing is looking for the value. Yeah, you never need a return. It's just that if you have promised to return something in the function, you should do that. Right now, so this is an interesting kind of programming philosophy bit. Let's see. So there's basically two different flavors of functions. There are pure functions, and pure functions are things that take in zero or more things and always return a value and don't have any side effects, which means they don't do anything outside of the function. So like a function like sort on an array that takes in the thing, it does and returns it without changing anything outside. This is not a pure function. This takes in a value, it doesn't return anything, and it definitely has side effects. The effect it has is that it manipulates something else that's not inside the function. Which neither one is better or worse. They're just 2 different flavors of function. And in this case, we don't need to return anything because all the stuff that's happening is happening as a side effect of the function. We are reaching outside of the function and changing stuff. We are pushing something onto this array that's outside of the function. We are filling with the browser window. So this is a function with side effects that is not returning anything. Other functions may not have side effects and may return things. It's just a different parts, different kinds of functions. Yeah, so that works. Any who asked that one? I forget. Was it Eileen? Yeah. Any questions about this or anything else you'd like to see about that?
No, that was helpful. Thanks.
Cool.
Mark, will you be posting your code later?
I can. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I'm still having trouble with the button, so
yeah.
I want to work on it.
Yeah. I'll put it in a little repo and put it along with the video. Cool. Let's see. I think this exercise is pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. Eileen, more questions?
I actually just saw Stephen ask in the chat about required fields in a form. Is that something that you'd be able to?
Yeah. So this is kind of what we're doing here manually, right? We are requiring that field to be filled out and doing something in response to that. There are a billion ways to do required forms. You can do it manually like this. You can say, you can't submit the form. if you wanted to do something fancy, you could, instead of throwing up an alert, you could create, a little error message and attach it to the DOM there. There are lots of like libraries and add-ons that help automate that process. I don't know that we're really even looking into any in phase 1, but there are definitely ways there are a billion ways to do it. Yeah, but this is one way of checking for a required field. If you wanted to, if it's empty, you could attach, create a new div and then attach it to, this is where like an empty thing for div ID equals error. And that might just sit there until something fills it. And then you can say like, instead of this, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. Say error equals new, let's do error element, error div.
Kind of already has like a little error on it when you put just required after the name.
Oh, if you just put required on the field.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to use the built-in one? Super easy version. Yeah. If you want to just put required here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this will, I don't think it visually changes it, but if we submit with
just put
yeah,
that.
puts that there. Yeah. The built-in one, the default one is fine. I prefer rolling my own. This is kind of but that is the dead simplest way to do it for sure. 100%.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I saw that question come up and realized I was curious about it too. So
cool. Yeah. Like anything, there's a billion different ways to do it. Cool. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. W3 W3 school, W3 schools. Possibly URL. MDN also will have that stuff. Cool. We've been here for an hour and change. I think that is all of the actual stuff I wanted to hit. What other questions do you have, or anything else you'd like to see before we go? Cool. This was a lot already. All right, I'll stop share. Cool. With the stuff we did today and tomorrow, you can do a lot of stuff, as you will see in the labs and exercises. Yeah, practice is the way to do it. Both just getting a handle on the fundamentals. I feel like folks are getting a handle on it already, just from doing this stuff, just from using it in a practical way instead of examples. Yeah, play with it. None of this stuff we did today was pre-scripted. This was all just like, hey, what if we do this? I had specific things I wanted to hit, but we were just playing the entire time and seeing what we could do with it. So yeah, do the labs and exercises, but also just mess around on your own. It's you are capable of doing pretty much anything you want with a editor and a browser. So the world is your oyster there. And yeah, so there's the the fluency you get from practicing over and over again, not only knowing how to do something, but knowing what you can do, what's available to you, knowing that, oh, we can get a value from a form and put it on the page, or we can check for required fields, or we can do this or that. Just knowing what's available to you is super powerful. So like there's that half of it, and then the other half, like what we saw going through debugging stuff, more than half even, is where you're gonna spend your time programming, is debugging, saying, I want to do this thing, it is doing something else instead. How do I do that detective work, finding out where that disconnect is? Some people like using a debugger. I console log everything. Just step through and make sure every piece is what you think it is until you find something that's not, and that's where you start digging. And again, that is a learned skill. That's just something like you literally do 10,000 hours and you eventually get pretty good at it. Cool. I think that's enough. Any final questions before we shut it down? Feeling pretty good. Yeah, Steven.
What will be going over tomorrow? So just so we can focus on.
Yeah, tomorrow we'll be using fetch. So we're going to be grabbing data from somewhere else and doing kind of the same kind of stuff. Cool. Anything else? All right. Great work today. Thanks for hanging out. I will post up the video and I will put the code along with it. Yeah, otherwise keep plugging away and I'll see you in a little bit. Thanks for hanging out.